Final Fantasy VII. You either love it or you think it's overrated. Just know that if you think it's overrated, you're wrong. So I'm sure most of you know by now that this classic masterpiece of gaming is getting a remake sometime later this year, next year, maybe sometime this decade? Maybe it'll just burn in development hell forever and get canceled just like everything I love and hold dear? Well, with the remake right around some corner, how about we make a top 10 video about the original game? Top 10 things I hope they don't fuck up in the remake. Oh, and massive, huge, enormous spoilers. I'm assuming you've played Final Fantasy VII if you're watching this. If you haven't, keep watching. Views pay my bills. Number 10! Right off the bat, Red 13 is a super mysterious character, and I think that's a big part of his appeal. What you come to learn later is that Red 13 is one of the least mysterious characters in this game of extremely overly mysterious characters. You got this mysterious pretty boy, and 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 this guy. Anyway, I think on most people's first time through Final Fantasy VII, a lot of questions get raised about old Red here. What is he? A dog? Why can a dog talk? Why is there a number in his name? Was he really just putting on a show when Hojo tried to make him mate with Aerith? Well, just about all of it gets answered relatively quickly once you get to Red's hometown, Cosmo Canyon, where we learn his real name is Nanaki. Red goes on about his past and how his father was a coward who abandoned his mother and his people during the war against the Gi tribe. Upon hearing this, Bugenhagen decides, fuck it, I guess this kid can know the truth about his family or whatever, and sends the party off to die in a cave that's haunted by the spirits of the very tribe that slaughtered his people. Thanks, Bugen! Well, as it turns out, Red's father, Seto, was actually this super brave badass warrior who single-handedly fought off the attack and was eventually turned to stone by the poison of the Gi tribe's arrows. Red comes to learn this and gets all fired up about helping the party save the planet, and then his dad's petrified body starts crying. It's a whole thing. But it's actually a pretty touching moment. Red goes from thinking his father was a coward to learning he was a hero, and it gives him motivation and purpose and all that good stuff. Yay, character development! Number 9! If you had ever played a Final Fantasy game before FF7, you probably had a certain set of expectations going into it. None of them were this. Every single previous game was a top-down, 2D, traditional RPG with an overworld and character sprites and this cool fusion of high fantasy and steampunk elements. These were the things that made a Final Fantasy game a Final Fantasy game. So if you're playing Final Fantasy VII for the first time, you're seeing approximately none of these things. This is a weird, edgy, cyberpunky, weeaboo-ass, big, swordy, spiky-haired game about blowing up reactors for the planet. Yeah, save the Earth! Or so you think. Well, as you all know, our boy Sephiroth shows up, and all this Shinra avalanche reactor shit stops mattering, like, immediately. You go through this motorcycle chase minigame, and then you're out of Midgar. I legitimately thought this entire game was going to take place in Midgar, and when I popped out of what I perceived to be the most massive video game city I had ever been in into this overworld, I was floored. This, my friends, is what I like to call the Midgar effect. Named after, well, this. It's when a game establishes a certain set of expectations about its world and then shatters them all by thrusting you into something much more grand. Like in Link to the Past, where you're beating the crap out of dungeons and you get the Master Sword and you think you're hot shit, and then it's, ha! There's a dark world, and you're gonna go there, and you're gonna get fucked! Or in Undertale, when you're just fighting random monsters like any old RPG, and then suddenly you beat Toriel, and it's like, oh shit! Beating enemies actually fucking murders them! I'd give more examples, but I don't want to spoil too many games for you guys. Anyway, the Midgar effect. It got me good, and it was one of the best moments of this game. Number 8! Let's lighten things up a bit. Remember that time you had to dress Cloud up like a girl so you could get into Don Corneo's mansion? And if you did a good enough job, Don Corneo would actually choose Cloud for the night, and you got a good laugh at his expense. Remember that time Square slapped pink hair and boobs on Cloud and out came lightning? Now who's laughing? Seriously though, this entire wall market part of the game was such a lighthearted breath of fresh air after the dark and dreary introduction to Final Fantasy VII. Your first time through, you probably weren't able to transform Cloud into the perfect woman and become Don Corneo's top pick, but that doesn't take away from the novelty of the whole process. All the little trials you have to go through to acquire various pieces of your lady costume are memorable, some bordering on traumatic. I'll never forget the horrors of the Honeybee Inn. Once you've got Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith all gathered in Corneo's room, they interrogate him for information by threatening to relieve him of his junk through various means, and it's honestly one of the most simultaneously uncomfortable and hysterical parts of any game ever. Number 7! Number 6! It's hard for me to say Aerith's death is one of my best memories from Final Fantasy VII, but it's a memory alright. I wasn't used to RPGs just straight up killing off characters when I played Final Fantasy VII, so when Sephiroth descended from the sky impaling poor innocent Aerith on his overcompensation blade, I was totally shocked. It was such a cruel trick for this game to play, establishing Aerith as this totally innocent, last of her kind that just kinda got dragged into this whole thing, but decided to embrace it and help save the world anyway, making her super charming and endearing and basically just straight up making the player fall for her, and then violently ripping her away in an instant. It's no surprise that the other party members are horrified, enraged, and deeply troubled by Aerith's death. But the more important thing is that the player is too. The game succeeds in making Aerith pretty much universally likable. Not only that, there's a good chance she was your team's clutch healer. And how about the fact that she's the only pure healer in the game? And she dies? Like, forever? Killing off a character to motivate the other characters is a pretty common writing technique, but when the player is motivated as well, now that's some good game design. And this leads me to my next topic. Number 5! So immediately after the Aerith thing, you fight Jenova for the third and final time before the end of the game. And I don't know about you guys, but I unleashed an apocalyptic hellstorm on her sorry ass. I was just fuming from Aerith's death. And the game's like, well, here's your punching bag. I don't think I've ever killed a Final Fantasy boss faster than I killed Jenova Death the first time. Or any time I fight her for that matter. Like, Sephiroth, bro, are you serious right now? You've got the fucking audacity to just butcher my #1 bae and then throw your ugly ass mom in my way like I'm not just gonna stomp her into the fucking ground in 2 seconds and catch up with your ass? I can't even remember what the fight itself is like. Seriously, when I was writing this video, all I could remember from that fight was the fact that I mercilessly pulverized Jenova. I can't remember what move she uses. I can't remember if she even fights back. She could have been using an attack called Giggle Fart Beam and I wouldn't have noticed. Number 4! Final Fantasy VII came out at a time when the internet was just a tiny amorphous larva compared to the gargantuan toxic sludge monster that it is today. So information about video games wasn't all that readily available. You either had the strategy guide or you heard the rumors in the hallways at school. And for me, the most memorable of these rumors was the fabled omnislash. Of course, rumor might not be the right word here because omnislash is very much a real thing, but I didn't know how to get it. I think without any outside help, most people probably don't get omnislash their first time through Final Fantasy VII. So when you're in that final man-to-man stare down with Sephiroth, your limit bar gradually filling up as you shoot hate-filled glances at one another, just waiting for the moment that one of you makes a move, and your limit break pops up, and this thing called omnislash that you've never seen before in your life? Well, that's fucking exciting. I think the game purposely lets you get to the end without getting omnislash, just so the first time that you use it, it's on Sephiroth's beautiful, bare-chested body. It just feels so right. After everything you've been through, all this fighting and magic and monsters, and it finally comes down to this. What better way to seal Sephiroth's fate and close the curtain on this game than with an omnislash to the face? Look at him, bleeding like a dumbass. Number 3! So there's this Shinra executive named Scarlet, and she's probably the most competent member of Shinra's top staff. You got this idiot, this guy who's not an idiot, but he's a spy, so that doesn't really help their case. But Scarlet tends to get shit done. And there's a lot of cackling. She's pretty into cackling. Well, towards the end of the game, Shinra's pretty much lost control of everything, and in a desperate attempt to stay relevant, Scarlet decides to publicly execute Tifa and Barrett with poison gas. Barrett ends up getting rescued by Kate Sith, but Tifa is still stuck and she has to play this stupid minigame that's actually pretty clever now that I think about it in order to escape. Once you do, you climb through a hole in the wall and end up outside on Junin's giant cannon, the Sister Ray. And who should show up in hot pursuit? Our favorite crimson-clad cackling Shinra exec, Scarlet. Now, there could have just been a crazy one-on-one battle like this game is so into doing, and you probably would have summoned crazy monsters and used a bunch of magic, and Scarlet probably would have had some weird, technologically advanced Shinra weapon, and it would have been like every other fight in the game. But you know what would be better? Slapping the ever-loving crap out of her! It's so satisfying, especially as Tifa, who she totally just tried to gas to death. So yeah, she has it coming. Number 2! Like I mentioned before, this game sets up certain expectations early on and then proceeds to disembowel them with a 7-foot katana. I'd say the point at which this really starts to happen is when the party gets captured by Shinra and thrown in jail, and then wakes up to find that the Shinra building has been massacred. The music is dark and ominous, strange monsters start appearing, and the halls are streaked with blood and claw marks. If you're one of those people who likes to play games where you get thrown into situations that make you say, what the fuck happened? You'll really like this part. Of course, what the fuck happened is that Sephiroth busted in and tore this place a new one to rescue his mom, and you figure that out just as soon as you see President Shinra impaled on that big-ass sword of his. It's just such a creepy and unsettling part of this game, and such an appropriate introduction to Sephiroth and the deranged lunatic he's become. Definitely one of the single greatest moments of Final Fantasy VII. Number 1! So this might be an odd choice, but for some reason Barrett's backstory really stuck with me and kind of fucked me up. I'm talking about the whole situation with his hometown of Coral, his friend Dyne, and Dyne's daughter Marlene. You always sort of wonder why exactly it is that Barrett has a gun for an arm. You think maybe he's just a badass, but the sad reality is that he learned the hard way never to trust Shinra. Coral was a pretty poor town, and everyone was in favor of letting them come in and build a reactor to help generate some income for the town. Everyone except Dyne, that is. Well, Shinra burned Coral to the ground for basically no reason while Barrett and Dyne were away one day, and when they returned, they narrowly escaped the Shinra. And by narrowly, I mean they both got shot in the hand and Dyne falls into a gorge and is pretty much presumed dead, which is why Barrett ends up raising his daughter Marlene. If only they had listened to the guy. Well, you eventually discover that Dyne is alive and not so well. He's pretty much spiraled into a pit of despair and is the big boss of the Gold Saucer prison underworld. The dialogue here is just gut-wrenching. Dyne goes on about how he's hearing his dead wife's voice telling him not to hate Barrett's rotten guts and how he just wants to destroy everything. You think there might be a glimmer of hope when you tell Dyne his daughter is still alive, but apparently he's gone full-on crazy and says he wants to send Marlene to see her mom. So like, kill her. The way he sees it, his life's been over ever since the Shinra attack, so he might as well take everything else with him. Like it or not, you gotta fight him one-on-one with Barrett. The fight itself is pretty ordinary, but afterwards, things just get sadder and sadder. Dyne is unable to turn back from the path of self-destruction he's been going down all these years. He doesn't even consider it worthwhile to go back to his daughter because she was too young to have even remembered him, and that his hands are too stained to carry her anyway. Fuck, man! This shit is sad. Well, Dyne gives Barrett his wife's pendant to give to Marlene and makes his way to the edge of the cliff. Don't ever make Marlene cry, he says, and throws himself off. You want to talk about some depressing shit? Damn. I hate to put something so sad as number 1, but this part really stuck with me. Despite being horribly depressing, this little slice of storyline is super well done. It's moments like these that make this game so great. Thank you guys so much for watching this video on my top 10 Final Fantasy VII moments. If you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more stuff like this every single week, just hit subscribe. And I'm making all the videos. So deal with it. Also, this video was a request from one of my supporters on Patreon, Totter. So this one's for you, bruh. As always, a huge shout out to all my supporters on Patreon, especially Rack-D7, The Icarus Gambit, Angel Freisinger, Totter, The NM22, Mika Bunny, Donut Senpai, Kayoya, Jake Hester, Stooge, Mero Ochi, and Ragnar Ramus. You guys are awesome. You guys make this all possible. You guys keep me in business. You keep me able to do this as a job, as a career. So huge thanks to all you guys. If you want to support me on Patreon, just check out the link in the description of this video, and every bit counts. So, you know. Thank you. Okay, bye, for real.